What's happening, crypto fam? You're tuned in to the Elite Wealth Podcast, where we unlock the secrets of crushing it in the Web3 and cryptocurrency space. I'm Tyler Brewer, alongside the co-host Garrison, Rolley, and since 2016, we've been educating, enriching, and empowering hundreds of students across the globe on how to make waves and create generational wealth in this space.
Each episode, Tyler and I keep it real with you, analyzing the top market movers and industry leaders, the latest news, and how to avoid the potholes on the road to crypto riches. We're industry vets who have guided students over 500% gains in this wild 2024 market.
If you're a rookie crypto trader or a seasoned investor, you're in the right hands. We will teach you how to level up your mindset and skills to really capitalize on this decentralized revolution.
Subscribe now and join us every week as we lead you step by step into elite digital wealth with the Elite Wealth Podcast.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to part 2 in the history and origins of Bitcoin. What is cryptocurrency, guys? Today in this episode, we're going to be deep diving in on the white paper of Bitcoin. We're going to cover some topics. We're not going to cover the entire white paper because some of it might be a little confusing when listening in. It's a real short, real simple. Like I was telling Garrison, it's crazy because it's so short and sweet, but yet it's very complex. So it's really cool because it also is a big change in the monetary systems, right? It's the upgrade. But the first things first, I think what we should do is really read the abstract right to begin with from the Bitcoin white paper. Garrison, do you want to kick it off with that?
Yeah, I'm definitely read that, and basically what the abstract is, guys. I mean, you'll kind of see here, but it's the motivation behind Bitcoin and its creation. So let me go here. Abstract: a purely peer-to-peer version of electronic cash would allow online payments to be sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution. Digital signatures provide part of the solution, but the main benefits are lost if a trusted third party is still required to prevent double spending. We propose a solution to the double spending problem using a peer-to-peer network. The network timestamps transactions by hashing them into an ongoing chain of hash-based proof of work, forming a record that cannot be changed without redoing the proof of work. The longest chain not only serves as a proof of the sequence of events witnessed, but proof that it came from the largest pool of CPU power. As long as majority of CPU power is controlled by nodes that are not cooperating to attack the network, they'll generate the longest chain and outpace attackers. The network itself requires minimal structure. Messages are broadcast on a best effort basis, and nodes can leave and rejoin the network at will, accepting the longest proof of work chain as proof of what happened while they were gone.
Yeah, bro. And really what that abstract does is it kind of gives you an idea of really what the paper covers, right? It gives you a breakdown of what they've done, and it in the white paper, it actually really breaks it down. But there's a couple things in there that Garrison probably read that some people are unfamiliar with, right? Again, the average person spends about 100,000 hours working for money, but they won't even spend 100 hours researching what money is, learn how to multiply it, how to store it, and all those other things. So what is double spending? Because double spending is a problem that Bitcoin solves. Well, in easy, simple terms, and I'm sure it's probably happened to a lot of people, but if I had $10 and I go to the gas station, a physical $10 bill, I go to the gas station, I give him that $10 bill, I can't spend that $10 bill again because it's at the gas station, right? He has the money. In order to get that back, I'd have to go return the product if it was able to do so and get my $10 back. But the problem with double spending is, and again, I'm sure this happens with a lot of people, how many times have you've been scheduled on today's the 27th, right? Let's say today's your payment date, but it's a holiday, thanks to the banks, right? It's a holiday, so they don't get to work. Bitcoin does. Bitcoin works on holidays. But like let's say your car insurance was scheduled today, but it doesn't come out 3 days later. Well, what happens if you only had maybe $100 in your bank account? Let's say your car insurance was $100 as well, right? But you go and spend that $100 on something else, and then they take that $100 from you, right? Now you've spent that same $100 twice, right? Now you have a negative balance. And also what could happen, right? Let's say Garrison's selling hats. Garrison sells hats. He sends me one. I call the bank. I say, hey, I never got this hat. And I'm literally wearing it, right? I'm calling them. say, hey, I didn't get this hat. You need to refund this. Well, Garrison already sent the hat. He can't just, he shipped it out to me. He's not gonna
That
like
probably
come to my
happens a lot
door.
with shipping and stuff like that because there's a lot of dishonest people in this world.
And what's crazy, bro, is companies allocate for things like this. They allocate
That's
for
true.
loss because of double spending, right? Bitcoin
Yeah.
solves the problem.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. Bitcoin solves this problem through the blockchain. Blockchain, if you don't know, we've gone over it a little bit before. It's an open distributed ledger that records every transaction. So if you really did try to spend that digital $10 twice, the network would see that the same $10 is already spent at store A, like Tyler said, and it would reject the second spend attempt at store B. And it's all in the network, guys. We'll get into it exactly how it works. Um, so I guess we'll go a little bit more down into the white paper here. We'll start with, we just read abstract. We'll go down to chapter one, introduction. Tyler, did you want to read that one?
I'll read that one. So, guys, introduction. So, commerce on the internet has come to rely almost exclusively on financial institutions serving as a trusted third party to process electronic payments. While the system works well enough for most transactions, it still suffers from the inherent weaknesses of the trust-based model. Completely non-reversible transactions are not really possible, since financial institutions cannot avoid mediating disputes, right? Like we just talked about, Garrison sends me the hat and I dispute the transaction, but I already have the hat on. So he doesn't get the money. He has to pay for the hat and I get to keep it. Right. So the cost of the mediation increases transaction costs, limiting the minimal practical transaction size and cutting off the possibility for small casual transactions. And there is a broader cost in the loss of ability to make non-reversible payments for non-reversible services. With the possibility of reversal, the need for trust spreads, right? Because we don't want to scam Garrison out of his hat business.
Please
So
don't.
merchants, yeah, right. Merchants must be weary of their customers hassling them for more information than they would otherwise need. A certain percentage of fraud is acceptable as unavoidable, right? These companies allocate funds for this. These costs and payment uncertainties can be avoided in person by using physical currency, but no mechanism exists to make payments over a communications channel without a trusted party, right? So, second part of that is what is needed is an electronic payment system based on cryptographic proof instead of trust, right? We don't need to just trust people. We can have coding that makes it so it's just trustworthy. We all know how it works.
Exactly.
Everybody can see how it works. There's no reason to not trust it because you know how it works. So, allowing any two willing parties to transact directly with each other without the need for trusted third party. Transactions that are computationally impractical to reverse would protect sellers from fraud. Garrison, your hat business is protected here as long as you use Bitcoin.
Let's go.
A routine escrow mechanism could easily be implemented to protect buyers. Well, if you don't know what escrow is, guys, think of escrow like um, I want to buy the hat from Garrison, but I need to be protected, and he needs to sell me the hat because he needs to stay in business. So I put this money in this account. He puts the hat in the account. Until then, they are not swapped, right? Normally, you need a third party to say, "Hey, here's the hat, here's the money," but I can still say, "Oh, I never got the hat." When you put the money in there, you agree that say, "Hey, I'm going to get this hat when I put this money in there." And if he doesn't put the hat in there, they won't take my money. I'll get my money back. So transactions that are
Exactly.
computationally impractical to reverse will protect sellers from fraud, and routine escrow mechanisms could easily be implemented to protect the buyers. In this paper, we propose a solution to the double spending problem using peer-to-peer distributed timestamp server to generate computational proof in chronological order of the transactions. The system is secure as long as honest nodes collectively control more CPU power than any cooperating group of attacker nodes. So that leads us to the next thing, right? Transactions. Garrison, if you want to read the transactions or the first paragraph or all of it, feel free to go.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and read that. So, transactions, here we are, chapter two. We define an electronic coin as a chain of digital signatures. Each owner transfers the coin to the next by digitally signing a hash of previous transaction and the public key of the next owner and adding these to the end of the coin. A payee can verify the signatures to verify the chain of ownership. So that's the first paragraph here of transactions. Tyler, we went over a hash in that paragraph. What is a
Yeah, bro.
hash?
So a hash in the context of Bitcoin, right? Because there's different types of hash, it's just depending on what niche market you're in, right? So in the context of Bitcoin, a hash refers to a fixed length string of digits that is generated by passing data through a mathematical function called a cryptographic hash function. So simple terms, right? Without using this crazy tech junky terminology, really what it is it's a string of digits that's generated by passing just information.
Cool.
And that's what a hash is. And that Bitcoin utilizes this hashing, the cryptographic function.
Yeah, because I'm sure that's going to be a term that, not even I knew before I read this white paper. So wanted to cover that. And the next chapter, I'll read the next two here. This is the last of chapter two, which is transactions. The problem, of course, is that the payee can't verify that one of the owners did not double spend the coin. A common solution is to introduce a trusted central authority, or mint, that checks every transaction for double spending. After each transaction, the coin must be returned to the mint to issue a new coin, and only coins issued directly from the mint are trusted not to be double spent. The problem with this solution is that the fate of the entire money system depends on company running with the mint, with every transaction having to go through them just like a bank. Tyler kind of just covered this a little bit ago. Every time we do a transaction or a credit card transaction, debit card transaction, it has to go through a bank first. It's not actually going to go right away. It takes a couple days actually, sometimes weeks for credit card transactions to go completely through. So
Exactly.
that's
And on top of it, like we covered in the previous kind of previously too, is it costs money, right? If you send $100, roughly 40 transactions of sending that $100, you would lose all of it due to the cost of needing to send it, right? It would cost you roughly a little over 2% per transaction. So in roughly 40 transactions with that $100, it's completely gone. So like
yeah.
Garrison, go ahead, sorry, bro.
Yeah, no, you're good. Yeah, it's like we need a way for the payee. This is the next paragraph here. We need a way for the payee to know that the previous owners did not sign any earlier transactions. That could be a problem for like say we'll go big spending here. Say I went to just buy a PC from Tyler and it's $1,000, but at the same time I just bought $1,000 worth of, a desk. I just bought a desk for $1,000 on my credit card or my debit card will say. I put that in, it didn't go through, so I was able to buy both, technically double spending. And that money is going to go to Tyler. Maybe that's the one that gets declined. He still has to pay the fees that he went through to try to send this transaction, and he doesn't get those fees back. So for our purposes, the earliest transaction is the one that counts. So we don't care about the later attempts to double spend. The only way to confirm the absence of a transaction is to be aware of all transactions. Like it said earlier, it's a list of in chronological order of each transaction. In the mint-based model, the mint was aware of all transactions and decided which arrived first. To accomplish this without a trusted party, transactions must be publicly announced, and we need a system for participants to agree on a single history of the order in which they were received. The payee needs proof that at the time of each transaction, the majority of nodes agreed it was the first received.
Right? We
So,
don't need no Mandela effect happening and saying, I don't know, I don't remember exactly if Garrison did send that. Maybe he did. He needs to send that 100K again, actually. I
yeah.
don't really.
Yeah, and there is transaction fees in the network, but I mean there's transaction fees in banks, and I just saw something the other day where someone sent a couple $1 million. I think it was actually 1 billion, but we'll say a couple million to be safe, of Bitcoin across the world to a different country. It only cost them like $5 or $6 in transaction fees to send all that amount of money.
And it was instantly settled. And the thing that people don't realize, and Garrison, you actually brought this up before you started reading the rest of it, but you talked about how long it takes for these actual transactions to finally settle. It could
Exactly.
be weeks or months. That same $100 I told you about, in roughly 40 transactions, you lose all that money due to the transaction fees. But in the same time, it would take about 6 years for it to completely settle every transaction. and confirm that they were all legit because they have to go back and check, and there's no real easy way to do that without doing and utilizing the same thing that Bitcoin uses,
Yeah,
which is,
imagine, I'm sorry.
no, you're good. Well,
Um,
let's say, which is the
imagine,
hashing.
okay, yeah, really quick. Imagine that you're in a bad situation, you needed cash quick. So maybe you have assets, maybe you have an asset, maybe you live in a different country and you have some real estate in the US and you want to sell that real estate and because you need the cash fast. Maybe your business is going down or whatever it is, maybe you need medical bills or whatever the case is. It's going to take you, first of all, in a real estate transaction, it takes up to 60 to 90 days, I believe.
Yep.
So it's going to take you that long to get the transaction to start. And then that money is going to funnel through and finally make it way to you on the other side of the country, which that could take, I wouldn't be surprised if that takes up to 6 to 8 months.
Right. But yeah, so I think Garrison, did you cover everything as far on the transaction side of things? Was that the
Yeah, and
final part?
transactions, we just read through all of that.
But
I think what's up next will be timestamp server.
Yep. So in the timestamp server, we slightly actually covered without saying so in the previous in the part one episode. So if you guys didn't see that, go back and check out the episode one where we cover that. But what that essentially is, the timestamp server was the Genesis block, which we talked about last time. And the Genesis block actually had a message embedded in it. And it was pretty much providing proof that it could have not been created before January 3rd, 2009, which was when the Genesis block was. So the timestamp kind of serves as like a unique and immutable reference point for the entire Bitcoin blockchain. Like it was the beginning, right? But from the Bitcoin white paper, the timestamp server, this is how it reads. So it says, the solution we propose begins with the timestamp server. The timestamp server works by taking a hash of a block of items to be timestamped and widely publishing the hash, such as in the newspaper, right? So the timestamp proves that the data must have existed at that time, obviously, in order to get to the hash. So each timestamp includes the previous timestamp in its hash, forming a chain, with each additional timestamp reinforcing the ones before it. So it has all the informations, including the information from the one before. So it's just a timestamp, and this is essential because again, the double spending, it avoids the problem of double spending because you can go and look back and say, no, 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 that was spent right here in the last block. You can't spend that again because that's fake because you already spent it, right? So it really avoids the fraud.
Yeah, I like how
And
it said obviously in there.
yeah, right. I know, and it's funny because right out of the white paper, bro, and you could tell that like this was a group of people who were like, bro, they just wrote when they wrote the white paper, bro. It was just like I said, bro, it's so simple. Yeah, it
Exactly.
was so complex. It's very complex as well. There's so many complex things that along with it, which leads us right to the proof of work mechanism that Bitcoin in the blockchain itself runs off of. Some of them don't. Some of them work off of proof of stake and other things, but mostly proof of work. So for Bitcoin, so I'll go ahead and read that one too, real quick, Harrison.
Yeah,
But
yeah, that's cool.
the proof of work. So proof of work with, and actually I don't think it's necessary to read the entire thing. I think we can actually probably cover a couple different things from inside of there that are very simplistic, right? Because sometimes reading, if you go and look at the actual white paper, some of those are a little more, it's difficult to understand what I'm saying by just me saying it. If you need to see the pictures that are included on the white
Yeah,
paper for it to make a little more sense, because some of them are also like formulas as well. So, me
exactly.
reading like MC equals, whatever, MC squared equals whatever, right? But
That's cool.
so
So
guys,
what is proof of work then, Tyler? I guess we'll
well,
start there.
yeah, so proof of work is essentially one CPU, one vote, right? So the difference between proof of stake and proof of work, let's say we have a race, right? Let's say we all line up for a race. Proof of stake, all you have to do is show that you're staking, right? Everybody runs the race, and the person who shows that they had the money staked, right? It all works out. So with the proof of work, essentially, like I said, one CPU, one vote. If you're running a race, the person who does the work gets rewarded. Therefore, there's no waste of power. Proof of stake, everybody runs the race, but not everybody gets rewarded. Just the person who solves it does. So with the
Yeah.
proof of work, not only one person selected to run the race. They do the work, and when the work's done, they get rewarded as long as they do it not maliciously. So, the proof of work also solves the problem of determining representation in majority decision making. If majority were based on a one IP address, one vote, it could be subverted by anyone able to allocate many IPs. Proof of work essentially one CPU, one vote. The majority decision is represented by the longest chain, which has the greatest proof of work effort invested in it. If a majority of CPU power is controlled by honest nodes, the honest chain will grow the fastest and outpace any competing chains. To modify a past block, an attacker would have to redo the proof of work of the block and all the blocks after it, and then catch up and surpass the work of the honest nodes. And Garrison's actually going to cover a little bit more in depth on what this is and how difficult it actually would be to do when he talks about the exahash. But to finish off the proof of work concept, so to compensate for increasing hardware speed and varying interest in running nodes over time, the proof of work difficulty is determined by a moving average targeting an average number of blocks per hour. If they're generated too fast, the difficulty increases. And Garrison, I think that kind of leads us to the exahash, right? So people are like, well, what happens if it gets hacked? Like, what if, what happens if somebody,
Right.
steals coin, manipulate? Tell us
No,
about that.
it's a true worry. I mean, you don't, especially when you don't understand it. And one thing I want to cover before we get into this, blockchain is ran by computers all over the world. It's not just one central location. I know we've covered this in the last couple episodes, probably each one, but um, there's been companies that have been hacked before, like JP Morgan, Home Depot, there's attacks like that all the time. Um, so it happens, okay? But in Bitcoin, it's nearly impossible, it's actually pretty much impossible. But I'll show you how. Really quick, I also wanted to cover this last sentence in introduction we covered. This is the last sentence in chapter 1 in the white paper. It says the system is secure as long as the honest nodes collectively control more CPU power than any cooperating group of attacker nodes. So, how much CPU power do you need to take over the honest nodes if you were a hacker? So let's go back down over here. Now, Bitcoin network has 300 exahash, which is the CPU power. Um, the whole country together, or the whole world together, the Earth has about 500 combined total hash power, with Bitcoin being 300 of that.
And that's per
Um,
second, right?
yeah, exahash per second, correct. And other blockchain networks have 50 exahash a second. Data centers and supercomputers are about 100 exahash a second. And personal devices like our phones and Tyler's phone and the phone that you might be listening to this from, 50 exahash a second. And that's every phone together. That's not just one phone. These are all personal devices. Data centers and supercomputers are like the data centers, obviously, like when you're all where they store all the information and stuff at corporate businesses, I guess, and where their computers are running everything. Um, or like Google. Google would be considered a data center as well. So to take control of the Bitcoin network, you need 153 exahash a second. And if you look here, I remember I said Bitcoin network is 300 exahash. With all other blockchains, data centers, supercomputers, and personal devices added up, it's 200 exahash a second. So you'd have to take over all the other blockchain networks, all the data centers and computers in the world, all the personal devices in the world to even come close to being able to take over the Bitcoin network for 1 second. For 1 second. Now, if you take this 153 and you times it by 60, so you want to take it over for a minute. You need 9,180 exahash to take over this, which for a whole minute, which that's you would like I said, there's only 500 total combined hash power in the world. So you would legit need like 10 Earths to do something like this. And it's theoretically possible to estimate the hash power required to hack or take control of the Bitcoin network. Like I said, for a short duration, maybe a second. You're not going to take it over for much longer than a second if you do. The actual feasibility of such an attack is extremely low due to immense computational resources and energy required, as well as the potential countermeasures that can be implemented by the community to protect the network's integrity. Because when that happens, there's also going to be all the other honest nodes that are going to be attacking and trying to change the network to get rid of this. Um,
And as long as majority of those nodes understand what the true blockchain is, it doesn't matter anyway, because eventually, if the other ones miss it, they'll catch up later when they realize this one's actually longer. Once the next block happens, they'll be like, oh, actually, and they always store both versions. Like, so let's say Garrison's the node, and he receives two different chains, right? The manipulated one and the other one. But me and him both receive it, right? I receive the manipulated one, he receives the good one, and we both start working on it, right? But we have both versions. We each have both versions, so they work on both of them. Whichever one is longer and is continued to work on is the true and the correct, the honest hash, the honest, chain. So
exactly. And like I said, the last sentence of the introduction in the white paper, I'm going to read it again. The system is secure as long as the honest nodes collectively control more CPU power than any cooperating group of attacker nodes. And if you wanted to get a group together, again, guys, you would need to take over all the other networks, all the other blockchain networks in the world, all data centers and supercomputers, Google, Brave browser, all that, and personal devices, everybody's phone, and it's like
and you
you
still
can.
only get control for 1 single second. So I hope you have everything lined up that you're gonna do.
You're gonna have to do it quick. So blockchain technology, it's a revolutionary innovation that serves as the foundation for cryptocurrencies. Just like Bitcoin, at its core, a blockchain is decentralized, distributed digital ledger that records transactions across a network of computers. Like I said before this, spread all across the world. It's not one specific location. Um, Ensuring transparency, security, and the mutability of data. And that's, these computers, in a sense, are nodes.
And Garrison, for those people who don't know, what is a node, right? Because people are like, dude, I've heard node 30 times in the past 6 minutes. So in the context of Bitcoin, again, because maybe there's a different node, I only know the Bitcoin one or crypto related one, but a node really just refers to a computer or device that runs software, Bitcoin software in this case, and participates in the Bitcoin network. Nodes are the fundamental components that make up a decentralized peer-to-peer network and play crucial roles in maintaining the integrity and security of Bitcoin blockchain. So the nodes are essentially the building blocks of the Bitcoin network, and they're responsible for the transaction relay, block validation, blockchain storage. And then we have miners too, right? Miners and validators aren't always the same. Their collective effort ensures that the decentralized and secure operations of the Bitcoin cryptocurrency. So yeah, bro. They're realistically the nodes are pretty much like the verifiers, right? Garrison and I could both individually own a node that is running the Bitcoin blockchain, right? And we could get rewarded for doing these transactions, validating the transactions. Or, right, we could do it as a group. We could become a company and do it together, and we could grow a huge one, right? So it doesn't have to be one single person. It could be a group. It could be an entity. It could be a company. It could be your family. But essentially, like Garrison said, there are computers and nodes that are all over the world. Pretty much.
Not
Awesome.
centralized. Not
Yeah.
centralized, guys. That's the key word. It's not
No
centralized.
centralization. Um,
So
but
I'll,
yeah,
I'll
bro. So we do. Go
go
ahead.
ahead. I was gonna say
I
I'll
was gonna
just
say, yeah,
read network.
yeah. You're up,
Um,
bro.
so yeah, I'll step into that here. The steps to run the network are as follows. So step one, new transaction and broadcast to, I'm sorry. Step one is new transactions are broadcasted to all nodes. Step two, each node collects new transactions into a block. Step three, each node works on finding difficult proof of work for its block. Step four, when a node finds a proof of work, it broadcasts the block to all nodes. Step 5, nodes accept the block only if all transactions in it are valid and not already spent, aka not double spending. Nodes, Step 6, nodes express their acceptance of the block by working on creating the next block in the chain using the hash of the accepted block as its previous hash.
And
So,
like I was saying earlier, the nodes will always consider the longest chain to be the correct one and will continue working on extending it. So if two nodes broadcast two different versions of the block simultaneously, some nodes might receive one or the other first. In that case, they'll actually work on the first one they received, but they'll save the other branch in case that one is the one that becomes longer. The tie will be broken when the next proof of work is found and the branch becomes longer. The nodes that were working on the other branch will switch to the longer one because they understand that that is the honest node. So the honest branch, right? So that leads us to the incentives, right? How do you get incentives? Before we do that, I want to read that last part in the transaction. So it says new transactions broadcast do not necessarily need to reach all nodes, right? Which I said before. As long as they reach many nodes, majority of the nodes, not even all of them or majority, just many of them, they will get into the new block before long. Block broadcasts are also tolerant of drop messages. If a node doesn't receive the block, let's say Garrison powers his off for a couple hours and it misses a couple or misses one, it will request it when it receives the next block and realizes that it missed one. And again, that leads us to the incentives. Why would you even want to do this? Why would you want to own
yeah,
a node? Why would you
you're,
even want to have one?
you're going to be spending your resources and your energy power, computing power. So, this is what we're going to cover here. I'll go ahead and read the first paragraph here. Incentive. By convention, the first transaction in a block is a special transaction that starts a new joined own. Oops, I'm sorry. By convention, the first transaction in a block is a special transaction that starts a new coin owned by the creator of the block. This adds an incentive for nodes to support the network and provides a way to initially distribute coins into circulation, since there is no central authority to issue them. The steady addition of a constant of amount the steady addition of a constant of amount of new coins is analogous to gold miners expending resources to add gold into circulation. In our case, it is CPU time and electricity that is being expended.
And in simple words, pretty much what he's saying there, in that it will not him specifically, but what Garrison's reading from the white paper
Yeah,
is when a block is mined, the first transaction in that block is a special transaction because it creates a brand new Bitcoin, aka mining, the creation of Bitcoin. And it gives them to the miner who mined it, right? That's why you want to have it because you get rewarded the Bitcoin. So the one who mines that block gets rewarded. This provides an incentive for miners to keep the network running since they get rewarded with new Bitcoins. It's a way to distribute new Bitcoins into circulation since there's no central authority or mint that can just create them, right? Which you don't want in the first place because then somebody is in control of your money. Sorry, Garrison. Go ahead with the second
no,
paragraph.
no, you're good. You're good. So, the incentive can also be funded with transaction fees. If the output value of a transaction is less than its input value, the difference is a transaction fee that is added to the incentive value of the block containing the transaction. Once a predetermined number of coins have entered circulation, the incentive can transition entirely to transaction fees and be completely inflation-free.
And again, we'll break it down in a little more simple terms because again, this is a little bit hard to understand for those of you who don't know what it is. So in addition to the new Bitcoin being created, miners also get the transaction fees from all the transactions included in that block. Normally, right, when we pay those transactions, who do they go to? The third party, right? The banks, the central authority. So right, you don't want that, right? You want the people who are running the network to be rewarded. And that could be anybody. It could be you, it could be me, it could be your company, it could be
Just
your
like a gold
grandma.
miner. Like, yeah,
Yep.
we can go out and mine gold if we wanted to.
Exactly. So again, the miners can also get the transaction fees from all the transactions included in that block if the input value, the amount being sent of the transaction is more than the output value, the amount being received, that difference is taken as a fee which goes to the miner.
And that'll,
Um,
especially when all the Bitcoin are released, that's when that'll really come into effect. I'm sure there's some certain cases where it still comes into effect today. But I'll read the last paragraph here. The incentive may help encourage nodes to stay honest. If a greedy attacker is able to assemble more CPU power than all the honest nodes, again, you need to hack a lot of things. He would have to choose between using it to defraud people by stealing back his payments or using it to generate new coins. He ought to find it more profitable to play by the rules, such rules that favor him with more new coins than everyone else combined, than to undermine the system and with the validity of its own wealth.
Yep. So again, like Garrison said, like once the Bitcoin are mined, once they're all done, there's no more to be minted, right? 'Cause there's only 21 million Bitcoin in existence ever. There's not no more. So once all those are mined and created, those no new numbers are of the Bitcoin has been created through mining. Over time, miners will actually only get paid through the transaction fees, not new Bitcoin, because they're not going to make more Bitcoin. Once
Exactly.
21 million are in circulation, that's it. So the incentive of getting rewarded with new Bitcoins and fees should encourage miners to follow the rules honestly. Because if a miner tries to cheat by spending the same Bitcoins twice, the double spending, they risk undermining the entire system that is the source of their Bitcoin wealth and rewards. like all of it's at risk. So it's more profitable for them to actually play by the rules. And this leads us to the
Exactly.
conclusion, Garrison. I'm going to read this just real fast because I want to wrap it up here real quick.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
the
perfect.
conclusion, guys, the end of the white paper. We didn't read all of it. We read majority and the most important things. So reading
Yeah,
the conclusion,
the
we
rest of
have.
it, I'm sorry, my bad. The
Oh, you're
rest
good.
of
You're
it's
good.
a lot of pictures, calculations and stuff that it'd probably be best for you to just come on here and look at it yourself. I mean,
A
we
lot of
don't know what a
coding.
lot of this stuff means even. You'd have to put it into AI probably to break it down and
Yep,
really tell you. But in other terms, it's basically just how the rest of it's working, like the halving and things like that, and when Bitcoin's going to be released, how it's going to be released, and things like that. Basically, just putting everything we've talked about into mathematical transactions.
exactly. And that leads us to the conclusion, guys. So, reading this from the Bitcoin white paper, we have proposed a system for electronic transactions without relying on trust. We started with the usual framework of coins made from digital signatures, which provides a strong control of ownership, but is incomplete without a way to prevent the double spending. To solve this, we proposed a peer-to-peer network using proof of work to record a public history of transactions that quickly becomes computationally impractical for an attacker to change if honest nodes control majority of the CPU power. The network is robust in its unstructured simplicity, right? Like we talked about, it's complex but very simple. Nodes work all at once with little coordination. They work all together. And they don't have to coordinate with each other. They just work together. So they do not need to be identified since messages are not routed to any particular place and only need to be delivered on a best effort basis. Nodes can leave and rejoin the network at will, accepting the proof of work chain as proof of what happened while they were gone. They vote with their CPU power, expressing their acceptance of valid blocks by working on extending them and rejecting the valid blocks by refusing to work on them. Any needed rules and incentives can be enforced with the consensus net mechanism, guys. If you want to see more of this, click the link in our bio. Join us for the next episode, which we'll be releasing soon, and we'll see you next time. See you guys.
Peace out, guys.